Because if you portray that in your portfolio, you probably want to do more work like that. It's really important. Whatever you put on your portfolio, it's a signal that you want to do such kind of work. Hey, what is up? Welcome back, Design Squad. I'm slowly going through the list of all the portfolio review requests I got in the last few weeks. And today I'm going to review product designer Pedro's portfolio from Sweden. So let's jump right into it. And as you can see right off the bat, Pedro's portfolio is a bit different. He has his own visual brand called Visual Bear. And as you can see, it stands out a little bit because he uses that red shade, which is cool. And so he's saying, hi, I'm Pedro Bjorn, a digital product designer based in Sweden. You can check out his work or get in touch. Then he jumps into his work. He has a few, UI cases, and then a couple of cases for a visual, his portfolio design, which I probably wouldn't include because that's great that you redesigned it, you thought about it, but I don't know if it's worth the case. Maybe you could add it as a blog post and enrich, your portfolio that way, where you can, then branch out into blogging and putting as an article. And the same I would do probably for your branding, especially if you think about your long-term development. Do you still want to do visual design, or do you want to go hardcore user research driven UX route, or do you want to be in the middle? Do you want to be generalist who does a lot of different things but doesn't really specialize in a specific area? Right now, without even going deep into cases and just looking at these four just from the overview, I would think that you could be a good fit for agency scenario where we expect you to do all of a different, creative craft and digital craft. But if I would hire for my team, let's say, where I'm hiring for UI designers and UX designers who are specializing in complex apps and user research and almost service design end to end, not so much on the branding, then I would kind of think, probably not a good fit. Because if you portray that in your portfolio, you probably want to do more work like that. It's really important. Whatever you put on your portfolio, it's a signal that you want to do such kind of work. Because again, maybe it's worth just having it a blog post, but not one of the cases. It really depends on your goals though, so take it with a grain of salt. And then you go into a call to action element, very simple. I can preview your social links if I want to. And then you have an about page. I think your resume, when I had to check really quickly, I think this really should be your about, because there's a bit more soul to it. You're saying that you like to learn. You're saying about your commitment and passion for product design, things of that nature. This resonated with me more than what I saw in the about page. So maybe you could port that. But let's go into actual work and a case study or two. And I'm just gonna go immediately into, let's say, the first case study. So if I go to its art and app case study, I don't know if I would state that it's a case study. It's kind of obvious and redundant right now. And just looking at it, I see that you add duration, responsibilities, tools, and you have also some sort of description of what the app is about, which I probably would take that and rephrase and just make it almost like as a sub headline or a headline. So it's easy introduction. And then you also say that it's a side project. You worked with a friend, and so you could literally put that under your responsibility so it links it better, and I can know immediately that it's a conceptual case. Or you could even add a tag here saying that it's a conceptual case. And so this app is an app for artists to find the people to give lessons to, and also to allow students to find, their mentors or coaches to learn about the art. So, and then you have a challenge and goals. And with a challenge, I think it's a bit of a bold statement that you know this. And I understand maybe it's a passion project, so you don't have, enough data or enough a business issue you want to solve or some sort of predefined challenge. That's totally fine. But then you could rephrase this into hypothesis, for example. And next is how did you arrive at those goals? Probably have a hypothesis that creating a tool for artists to find students is going to solve those issues. But is it really an issue? And that's where you would then link into user research. All of this would need to be answered by end-to-end discovery, to kind of dig deeper, to talk with the artists, to map out what's there, how do we deal with, what challenges we face, what are the pain points, what are the opportunities. Only then you would identify the opportunity areas and can outlist of what could be done. And a digital mean like an app is one way to skin a cat and to solve the issues, and I can guarantee that the digital way is just a low-hanging fruit, and there is just so much more you could do for those artists to link them up with the people. But besides that, you basically then go into this app design. I guess this is a final product, but this is where I would maybe have a video or a click-through or something which shows, the highlights of those designs instead of just one mock-up. So let's now find out how did you do that, and then I as a reviewer would go through and see if what you did actually resonates with what the role is about if I would, let's say, be hiring for a designer. I can see that you outline the process. Perhaps here you could add a few notes, so like as a summary, as an introduction, like exactly what you did. So if you're making it almost like chapters, why not to make a few notes that, let's say in Discovery you ran user interviews, yada yada, like what did you do yourself, and what were the key activities. That could give me a bit of insight before jumping into it. Again, the hiring managers are going to have just a few minutes to make an assessment if it's worth talking to you later on, let's say. And then you jump into the Discovery, basically defining the problem statement, how you approached it, which I think this is what you could have displayed in the beginning as a challenge. Because if that's what your users are facing, this is a perfect introduction to what is the issue. You can literally just take this photo and say, this is what there is right now. Some people are posting their ads. Some people are finding those ads. There's a lot of detective work and a lot of serendipity for them to connect. It could be accidental. You almost need to be as bold as you can be to kind of attract the attention, and then just connecting them is really just by accident, it sounds like, right? So you could literally state that and just push that photo in the beginning so that it attracts my eye, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is actually an interesting challenge. How would you solve that? And then you would go into Discovery. This is where I have a big question mark, because in the Discovery you said that you talked to circus students. So I wonder if you narrowed it too soon, because from what you portrayed before with the final outcome, let's say, it's for all the artists, it's kind of like a big major group. Why did you immediately kind of narrow down into those circus students? This is a big question, because I would understand this and I would understand focusing on a specific segment, but when you need to kind of outline in your case study how many user groups there are and why did you pick the circus students? Is it because they're the best to investigate? Or is it because they're entry, like early adopters of your solution? What was the thinking behind? If you can portray that, it's going to be much easier for myself to understand. And nothing would make it easier than coming up with a personas or proto-personas to display it. Perhaps the circus students are ones you can access easily and the ones you can experiment on easily and quickest, so to learn more and progress with your, let's say, solution, then that's totally fine, but you just need to say that. All these themes you got out of that really should be in, let's say, your empathy map or your persona, then you can easily display what was. Then you looked at the market, what's out there, you got some takeaways from it, and then you jumped into a definition to solve it. I don't know if you define the issue well enough. From UX standpoint, for like hardcore UX standpoint, I would expect you to map out that existing process. So to me, you have two key user groups, right? You have someone who posts an ad, you have someone who reads an ad, and then you have some sort of peripheral activities of how you re-engage together, right? So there is a common journey. But I would expect you to map that out as is. So how do they go through it? And then visually showcase exactly where the issues are so that you can solve that specific segment or all those specific touch points in their journeys so that you can kind of replace the touch points with a new solution. And to me, that would be a bit of a red flag, thinking that you jumped to the conclusion way too soon because maybe you didn't learn enough about the journey as a whole, all that experience as a whole, because there are just so many nuances. There are so many touch points in every journey. You need to know about it to arrive at a really good conclusion from UX standpoint. But you ideated with sketches, flow diagrams, you did a lot of sketching by hand and by paper. You have some logo sketches as well, which I think is an add-on to your existing product design effort. But I would question how much of this visual design, that branding part, is relevant to your case study, because visuals, of course, matter a lot, especially if you want to stand out from other competitors, especially if you want to attract potential users' eyes and expect them to actually act on it and get engaged with your app, right? It does matter a lot, but I would probably keep it as a last thing, as an almost cherry on top of a massive cake of value you're going to deliver as a designer. I would basically probably take all that branding and visual identity you have with the colors and everything else and put it last. I understand you're proud of it and it's great work. I like the brand itself, but what I would care about from product design perspective is really the wireframes, the mock-ups, the prototype itself, exactly what do the users go through if you answer some sort of specific need or specific issues. And then you listed that you pivoted the app, and I like that because you're honest about it. You're saying that because of a feasibility and tech issues, you had to pivot and pick another solution, which is totally fine. This is awesome. It's exactly where, you know, a lot of designers don't have that in their portfolios, which is great. The implementation, development, and you go bit by bit, basically feature set by feature set, explaining exactly what it is and what value it gives to a user, which is great, but there's a lot to it. So I would consider if all of this, you know, all of these few slides with different mock-ups could be represented with just, you know, one screen, like one device, basically an app, and you just maybe have like tabs or bubbles, and if a user clicks on it, like let's say artist lesson card, you just display that as a, you know, as a tabbed slideshow basically in one slide instead of having a lot of different bits, because it would take me a lot to go through that. And since you display it, let's say here cards, but here you have certain mock-ups, here is kind of like flipped, I would then question like, why did you do that? Why couldn't you just keep it super simple for me to quickly go through it and understand what's the key benefit for the end user? And then you have a collage, which I would probably use up above as an introduction. As I said, you could place a video, you could place like a slideshow of a prototype. It would be a good introduction for me to immediately understand the scope and what you actually did in terms of product. Lastly, you have some lessons learned, some conclusions. And I like that you're being honest that you need to prototype early, keeping it simple, don't try to do everything. And you have a call to action element, which is great, so you conclude the story. But there are a few bits what I would definitely recommend you to focus on. Maybe not on this case if you don't have those assets or you haven't captured it or you didn't do. There's a lot more you can do in terms of defining exactly what's there, because to me it seems like you jump to a conclusion way too quick, which is super common with portfolios. But if I would assess it from UX standpoint, from discovery, user research, user-centric methods perspective, you would definitely need to flesh out the discovery and keep that heavier. And if I jump to the next case, and really quickly, I'm going to scan for it really quickly because this is a conceptual case. But as you can see, there are some things which still apply from the other one. The template is consistent, so you have a challenge, goals, you have a preview, looks pretty good here. You have the research, ideation, iterations, all the stuff you did. And I guess you took the Steam app you use as a user right now and you started to think exactly how you could improve it from your own personal perspective, right? Not to kind of go through it again bit by bit. I think the same bits apply about the branding and everything else. But one thing what stood out to me in the lessons learned here is that you should do more user research. And you know, sometimes you're not going to be able to do end-to-end user research. But I'm sure you have friends who are players. I'm sure you have friends online who use Steam. Maybe you play games together. There is a lot of online communities. You can find people on Steam itself, on Discord for specific games, and ask them questions. You can go on Reddit and capture a lot of information about it. You can go on app stores on your mobile devices and find a lot of snippets, a lot of reviews about the app, what works and what doesn't. You can extract those different bits and use that as a starting baseline because you considered a lot of other user inputs instead of just having your own. So that's a key recommendation, and you can use it almost on any case, especially if it's a conceptual, your own case, because then it's going to add more weight to everything you state, as long as you link it to all the themes and all the insights and you arrive at the conclusions which are meaningful for the user given the context and those issues. Maybe there's other issues to it. Maybe there's an issue in the peripheral sense. Maybe it doesn't integrate well with the desktop experience. So why not to map out it end to end, from the beginning till the end in the player's journey, and how do they use those channels, those devices in their end-to-end journey with the key touch points, all the pain points, all the whys, all the insights, all the opportunities around it. capturing that, showcasing that in your portfolio, it would make it stand out. And so maybe I would even challenge you as a designer, Pedro, if you could just go and do another round, go and do that qualitative research I mentioned before. If you could map out end-to-end journeys, if you could add some persona work, if you could define who the users are, what their challenges are, what they're trying to achieve, what you can do for them, if you could link that, then it would make this conceptual case even stronger. And chances are then your mock-ups in the end on all the sketches and everything else would be even more meaningful. And so for everyone else, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment down below what you think of it, and as per usual, I'll see you next time.